Okay, thanks very much for that, Pip. That was brilliant. You have to listen to me for 20 minutes now before you get your lunch. Sorry. I'm just going to we're just going to extend the theme of the day, really. We've looked at making ACMS work better. We've looked at making ACMS work better. We've AssessBook work better. We've looked at making them work better together. And this little section here is about extending that to other systems. So really recognising that ACMS does not live on its own in the world. It's part of a broader ecosystem to do with lots of things. Lots of competence data is used in learning management. We've talked about that. People have their medical data somewhere else. There's a whole load of trained driver licensing systems at the ORR. Some people do incident management on ACMS. Some people do some of it on ACMS. There are other systems externally. There's the whole problem of resource management and rostering to deal with, and also risk management, which is a less obvious contender, and Pete, HR databases. Now, we've talked a bit about this today, but I'm going to try and just talk through each of these other subjects now. So medical data. The truth here is many of you have separate systems for occupational health that is essentially the master for your medical data. And guess what? Some of you don't. For some of you, ACMS is the master for medical dates. Now, that already gives us a bit of a dichotomy to deal with because people want the system to work differently. But overall, we must have a single source of truth, and we've got to stop all this double data entry. I've been through a particularly painful exercise with one customer recently trying to sort this out, basically working out that the data gets in a muddle very quickly if you make people type it here and then type it there. So what we're going to do is have a mechanism whereby, on a candidate-by-candidate basis, you decide, is ACMS the master or not for this data? So it works like this. You have an OH system, you have ACMS. You need an integration point where you can push the data to so that we can pull it into ACMS. Now, in the case of GT Railway, this is just simply a SharePoint file. We're talking to SWR about doing this as well. I think it's going to be a Google Doc. We don't know yet. It could be a file on Box. It could be anywhere, right? Point is, we don't need to poke about inside your OH system. That wouldn't be a very good idea. There's then a subscription list on ACMS so that you decide for whom this data is going to be pulled. So if you want to edit the records on ACMS, you have to take them out of the subscription list, and then ACMS becomes the master for the data. And then as the data is pushed to the integration point, say nightly, it's pulled into ACMS, and you've resolved your double data entry problem. Ta-da! Trained driver licensing. And before I start here, I'm going to do a shout out to Brian Noble, who's been helping me get involved in this. I know he's not very well at the moment and he's at home. So if you're online, Brian, thank you for this. There is a current ORR trained driver licensing portal that I've made several efforts over the years to make an interface to without success. It is being redeveloped. According to them, it is on its knees, whatever that means. They're going to be sending this out for tender shortly, with a project starting next year. I have been talking to them, and we have requested that an API be included in this tender so that we can finally build that electronic interface, because we have the same problem here that we have with medical data. You put all your data on ACMS, you can print an application form, but you then have to copy it all onto an application form, and then you have to copy it all into the portal. We would also like an automatic interface for sending the reports to do with drivers on track, drivers off track, drivers wearing glasses, drivers not wearing glasses, because at the moment that's also entirely paper-based. So we're all over that, basically. That's going to be coming soon. Talk a bit about incident management. Different companies have different systems covering different parts of the incident life cycle. And again, we need a single source of truth. So some of you use the full functionality of the incident management module on ACMS, so i.e. you log the incidents there and you do the investigations there. Some of you log the incidents but do not do the investigations there, do them somewhere else and upload them. Some of you don't use it at all. you all have to use SMIS. And all I'm going to say about SMIS is, can someone please help me? I've spoken to SMIS on 4 different occasions, and what happens each time is the person who's now doing it is a different person to it was last time. And I get a lovely overview of how SMIS works, right? It's lovely. I love it. But I want an interface to it. And I can't get on the work stack because I'm not a SMIS customer. So my request here is, can you all please go home and ring them up and say, please, can we have an interface to ACMS? But yeah.
Is it working now? Hi, Phil Hibberdauer, SSB. I believe Justin Willett is in the room. Is he still here somewhere?
He was here earlier. I think
has he gone? Is he working? All right, okay. So I thought this question may come up today. Justin or GTR are involved in a project, and a freight company are also involved in a project. So it's #1 priority within our new IM&T director's remit to see how we can link that together. He did a presentation a few weeks ago, which I was privileged to watch, and he talked about doing some gap analysis and seeing how the information would transfer over. So they've already started doing some work, and there's some data in there. So the ball is eventually, because we've been talking about this for 2 or 3 years, haven't we? Yeah, so the ball is now rolling.
Perfect, because I know what people are doing with ACMS is they're typing the SMIS information to ACMS and then they're custom pasting it into SMIS or vice versa, and that's just a pain.
So if people are getting frustrated in the room, I've got a little stand next door. Please come up to me, and I'll give you Joshua Fisher's email address. He's our director of IM&T, and you can email him directly.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Phil. And we're also looking at building some interfaces into some other apps, like the Zero Harm app at GT Railway, in fact. We haven't started that project yet, but it's on our radar. The next topic is resource management and rostering. Now, fairly obviously, everybody rosters on the basis of competence. And I've forgotten the name of your system already. The one you were just talking about. Equinox. So the engineering team at Eurostar use Equinox to roster.
We use Kronos.
They use Kronos to roster.
Another system.
Another system. Now, we know there are lots of different systems at play. You all have different ones. Some of them have APIs, some don't. Some are quite new modern systems, some are quite legacy. Currently, we have interfaces to a lot of these systems, but they're all report-based. It's all a matter of printing a report from ACMS and sending it to them. And then there's a load of what we call swivel chair integration, which is not integration at all. Lots of manual input, lots of double data entry, and we have an ongoing risk of diverging databases. We know this. So we'd like to do something about it. So this is fairly simple, really. ACMS knows who signs what, be it a route, a traction, an engineering competence, it doesn't matter. The rostering system knows when they last did it, or the other system. So it wouldn't be a good idea if they talk to each other. Now, the issue here, of course, is there are a lot of these, and I would, after this, like to know exactly which ones people use. So what we are going to need to do is, again, just like the medical data, have some sort of integration point so we can push and pull data in a common format. In the room, we have Paul. Paul is from a company called ITAL, who is looking at doing some of this data aggregation, so you might want to speak to him at lunchtime. But we're going to look at building some interfaces to these things. So, and the final topic I was going to talk about is risk management. This is a less obvious interface to, has a less obvious input. Make a sentence, Sally. This has a less obvious relationship to competence management. But what happens today is you do lots of risk assessments. They tend to be either done on paper or done on kind of what I would call electronic versions of paper, i.e. Word documents that are stored on document management systems and stuff. So it tends to be very difficult to share that data and difficult to mine that data. So if you do lots of similar risk assessments, you probably do lots of repeating work without sharing the learning. So what has this got to do with competence management? Well, You have these things on a risk management system, which could be Word documents or they could be in a database. Mostly they're kind of Word documents and PDFs. What happens is you have some sort of incident and you do an investigation of that incident, and quite often that dictates the need to change or reassess a risk. So you action a risk assessment. In fact, when we look at the recommendations on some of the investigations on ACMS, it quite often says, redo the risk assessment of platform 6 at Guildford or something. So you go and you do that, you do it on a Word document, and nothing ever comes back. That recommendation sits there on ACMS and has to be manually closed. Yet you have a recommendation and an action plan over on your risk management system somewhere. So what we need to do is bring that back so that we can update the recommendations on the incident. Now, if we built an interface to a sensible risk management system, this would address the long-standing concern that a lot of you have, that those recommendations just get stuck on ACMS. ACMS is not a project management tool. You can't really do anything with it. So, the bottom line is AssessTech are not going to build a risk management system. There's quite a lot of them in the world already, lots of them in fact. There's a huge range of costs. It seems to me you can spend anything from about £10,000 to about £10 million on a risk management system if you try really hard. There would be lots of business benefits doing that, and we are currently doing, just to let you know, we are currently doing a market survey. We've got a couple of ones we've shortlisted that we're in the process of looking at. So with that in mind, if you look on your app, and this is not a live poll, so we won't be getting the results come up anytime soon, but there are 7 questions on a survey, generally about integration, and it asks you things like, what system do you use for that? Would you save lots of time if we had an interface to this, and so on. You don't need to do it now, but if over lunchtime you could spend a bit of time doing that survey, we'd be really grateful. And with that in mind, I will take questions. And to address Pete Dempsey's question first, the answer is the same. Yes, we can build interface to an HR system. We need that integration point. We need a point where the HR system pushes the data, same as the OH system, and we just need to come and talk to you about the specific requirement for that. Just going to look at my questions. Question from Tim Forshaw at GWR. Where employees move between TOCs and FOCs, if both use ACMS, is it possible to transfer records, licensing info, safety performance, etc.? Where's Tim? Yes, it's technically possible. There's a contractual problem there because the 2 TOCs own the data, so we'd need to have a bit of a dig in that, I feel. But there would be technically we could export from one and import from another, certainly. Can you use a mic? Sorry, people can't. It's all right. Here comes Pat.
Yeah, I suspected that would be the answer. All the data obviously makes its way, but through terribly antiquated means, essentially.
Yes. You're right.
So, yeah, I guess there would be GDPR considerations and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it just feels like there's such a high percentage of obviously TOCs and FOCs now using the same system. It would take out some of that risk of either error or deliberate omission, potentially, from people moving from one TOC to the other.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it would be relatively easy to have a format where we send the stuff out to a formatted spreadsheet or something that could be imported to the other one. I mean, that doesn't feel like rocket science. We'll come and talk to you. Mm-hmm.
There's a lovely little form called an ATOC B1 that would almost be useful if ACMS you had a sort of was almost a report, and you could almost say produce ATOC B1, and it produces it.
If that's the driver transfer form, it does.
Yeah. Okay.
It already does that.
Yeah, electronically though.
Yeah.
Because when everyone I receive has been written by someone with a pen, so I've never seen that.
There is a driver transfer form on there. You just need to enable it. In fact, it is on your GWR system. We built it for Stuart.
Quite possibly.
Yeah.
It's not getting used very much.
Quick, someone give Stuart the mic.
Oh yeah, the form is there, but it would be useful if it was outputted into some sort of a DAT file that you could send to the company and say, if you want to import this about our driver, here it is.
Yeah.
Rather than, oh, here's a piece of paper, I now I've got to type it all in.
Yeah, that is the problem. It exports automatically, but there's no way to import it automatically. Agreed. Question from Adrian Champion. When making ACMS the master for medicals, this could mean an increase in candidates that are not safety critical and are not using other ACMS modules. Is this factored into the pricing? So, Adrian, I wasn't suggesting you should make ACMS master for medicals. I'm in fact suggesting that whatever system you've got that is the master for medicals should stay there, but we should simply synchronise with it rather than having to type medicals in as well. Can someone give him the mic, please?
Yeah, thanks, Sally. It's just that, so we currently use Oracle. We don't want to use Oracle anymore. We'd like to use ACMS, but there are people in Oracle that are not in ACMS, so therefore we'd have to add those as candidates, which therefore means that our headcount, if you will, on the system would go up, and therefore perhaps move into another pricing bracket.
Yeah, it would, but we can talk. Is that a hint? I have some more questions here. Another one from Adrian. The CMS is linked to the RBTNA. Is there an opportunity to include this link? Oh, it's gone. Where's it moved? There we go. Sorry, as somebody adds a question, it moves about. The CMS is linked to the RBTNA. Is there an opportunity to include this link so updates can either be visible and recorded? Can I ask you to elaborate? I don't know that I understand that question. Sorry.
So currently you've got your RBTNA on a spreadsheet. Yeah, so you've got the risk and everything involved in that, what we would currently do, and I do, by the way. It's a really good idea. So we do RBTNAs, which then create tasks, and then they create performance criteria, which is linked to risk. And then we import it into, well, we just import the criteria and the risk into ACMS, but we don't bring the RBTNA with us. So if we could bring the RBTNA with us, we could change the RBTNA, which would then change the schedules and all the performance criteria, and we could update it as we go.
That's a very good
just
idea.
like, I'm writing one at the moment. It'd be great, wouldn't it? We need that.
I feel a focus group coming on. Right. Thank you. So one from Andrew Taylor. About 1 million years ago, I'm sure that's an exaggeration. About 1 million years ago, Gabriel had a vision for analysing data from an incident investigation and identifying ACMS profiles whose assessment history suggests they might be at risk of a similar incident, meaning that learning and support interventions can be targeted to them. Are we any closer to that? Well, Andrew.
Wait till after lunch.
Wait until after lunch, because guess what? Yes, we are. Come on, close. Right. One from Phil Hibbard. With regards to the rostering, are AssessTech aware of work being done by ORR, brackets Jeremy Moorhood, and RSSB around rostering guidance, which a number of organisations are keen to build into rostering software? The aim by many is to create a real-time rostering risk management stroke decision-making tool. Some great work has been done by the CEO at Deutsche Bahn on rostering tools, and she, Marie Hill, is happy to showcase to the industry. I wasn't aware, but that's really good, and we will, if you can introduce us, we'll have a look at that. I think that's very interesting. Thank you, sir. Are there any more questions from the floor? No? Perfect. Lunch is in 1 minute.
So, and remember everyone, there's a room just there. You do it.
So, we have some lunchtime exhibitions. There's a room just down the side there. There's 3 stations set up. One is our own AssessTech training department. Leanne will be showing our wares. Brendan Morris, somewhere here, has a station with all the 3D VSL apps. They're really cool. You should go and have a look at them. And Phil Hibbard has a station for RSSB. There is also a virtual exhibition just on the app from mobile learning. There are some videos and some screenshots of the mobile learning app. If you've got any questions about that, if you have a look at it, you need to make your way to Hannah, who'll be able to answer those. They live in Australia, so they're not here today, I'm afraid, due to travel restrictions. So, lunch. I believe it's harissa chicken and vegetable dal. Back at 1:45, please.